1.
기도하고, 기도하다 소스, howtostudykorean.com.
Below is a list of vocabularies to be used in this lesson. Nouns.
억양,
Means accent.
빗,
Means debt.
빗,
Means comb.
솔,
Means brush.
치약,
Means toothpaste.
칫솔,
Means toothbrush.
화학,
Means chemistry.
철학,
Means philosophy.
가죽,
Means leather, animal skin.
악어,
Means alligator, crocodile.
발명품,
Means invention.
스타일,
Means style.
향수,
Means perfume.
코,
Means nose.
콧구멍,
Means nostril.
양파,
Means onion.
양말,
Means socks.
틈,
Means crack.
시설,
Means facilities.
개수,
Means the number of things.
명수,
Means the number of people.
대화,
Means conversation. Verbs.
빗다,
Means to comb one's hair.
비교하다,
Means to compare.
발명하다,
Means to invent.
끓이다,
Means to boil.
솔질하다,
Means to brush.
진학하다,
Means to enter a school.
세다,
Means to count.
사과하다,
Means to apologize.
뿌리다,
Means to sprinkle. Passive verbs.
끓다,
Means to be boiling. Adjectives.
끝없이 다,
Means to be endless.
미묘하다,
Means to be subtle.
불행하다,
Means to be unhappy.
밉다,
Means for somebody to piss you off. Introduction. At the very beginning of Unit 2, you learned about the
는 것,
principle over the course of many lessons. In these lessons, you learned how to change verbs, adjectives and entire clauses into nouns by adding
는 것, 기,
or. In this lesson, you will learn another practical application of
기,
in Korean sentences by using.
기도하고 기도하다,
Let's get started. Adding
to,
to a clause.
기도하다,
Way back in lesson 4, you learned how to attach
to,
nouns to add the meaning of as well or to the noun it is attached to. For example,
저는 화학도 가르쳐요.
I teach chemistry too, in addition to other subjects.
저도 화학을 가르쳐요.
I teach chemistry too, in addition to other people that also teach chemistry. Adding to a simple noun like this is very easy, and I am sure you are comfortable doing it by now. It is also possible to add to other parts of speech, including verbs and adjectives that have been changed to their respective noun forms. To see a long list of other ways
to,
can be used, you might want to also check out lesson 107. In lesson 29, you learned that you can attach
기,
to verbs or adjectives. In lesson 29, you saw some common and specific ways that
기,
can be used in Korean. For example, it is often used to say that one doesn't like or doesn't want to do something.
저는 아빠에게 사과하기 싫어요.
I don't want to apologize to Dad. It is often used to say that one starts an action.
우리 회사가 내일부터 모든 시설을 대체하기 시작할 거예요.
Our company will start replacing all of the facilities from tomorrow. We can apply the meaning of
to
verbs or adjectives that have been changed to their respective noun forms using
기,
Let's look at how we can do this. Look at the following sentences clauses.
그녀가 예쁘다.
She is pretty.
내가 밥을 먹는다.
I eat. We can turn those clauses into nouns by attaching
기,
to the predicating adjective or verb
그녀가 예쁘기 내가 밥을 먹기.
by attaching
to,
to. You are indicating that the clause also occurs in addition to some other clause. For example,
그녀가 예쁘기도, 내가 밥을 먹기도.
those constructions are not sentences yet. They're technically just a clause in noun form. In order to turn them into actual sentences,
하다,
is typically used as a predicating verb. For example,
그녀가 예쁘기도 해요.
she is pretty too.
내가 밥을 먹기도 했어.
I ate too. Make sure that you are aware of the function and meaning of
도,
and the meaning that it can create depending on the noun it is attached to. Remember that only the noun that
to
is attached to is the noun that carries the meaning. Look at these examples.
그녀도 예뻐요.
She too is pretty, in the sense that other people are pretty, but she is too.
그녀가 예쁘기도 해요.
She is pretty too, in the sense that she may also have other qualities or characteristics, but she is pretty too, comma.
나도 밥을 먹었어.
I too ate rice, in the sense that other people ate rice, but I did too.
내가 밥도 먹었어.
I ate rice too, in the sense that I ate other things, but I also ate rice.
내가 밥을 먹기도 했어.
I ate rice too, in the sense that I did other things, but I also ate rice, comma. Let's look at the two sentences that we have created so far.
그녀가 예쁘기도 해요.
She is pretty too.
내가 밥을 먹기도 했어.
I ate rice too. These two are perfect sentences, but would probably not be said on their own with no prior context. In order for these sentences to be appropriate, they would usually have to be prefaced by you, or by somebody else, with some other action or description. This is the same in English. You would never just walk into a room and randomly say, "She is pretty too." In order for this clause to be appropriate, somebody would have had to be talking about her other traits. For example, person 1.
그녀가 매우 똑똑하고 친절해요.
She is very smart and kind. Person 2.
네, 그녀가 예쁘기도 해요.
Yeah, she is pretty too. Here are some other examples. Notice that I am providing examples in the form of a short dialogue so you can see that these types of sentences need some kind of underlying context. Person 1.
우리 학교에서 많은 학생들이 대학교에 진학해요.
Many students from our school enter university. Person 2.
그리고 몇몇 학생들은 바로 일자리를 구하기도 해요.
And also, some students get jobs right away. Person 1.
그 사람은 직업이 없어서 돈이 전혀 없어요.
Because that person doesn't have a job, he doesn't have any money. Person 2.
그리고 빚이 많기도 해요.
And also, he has a lot of debt. Person 1.
그 남자가 악어 가죽 신발을 신고 있어서 못생겨 보이지 않아요.
That person is wearing alligator skin, leather, shoes. So doesn't he look ugly? Person 2.
네, 머리 스타일이 이상하기도 해요.
Yeah, and his hairstyle is weird too. In these examples, we see that some prior context is needed to make these sentences appropriate. It is also possible for one person to talk about multiple actions or descriptions, which would eliminate the need for prior context when using.
기도하다.
I will talk about this in the next section. Full stop. Full stop. Stressing two actions or descriptions.
기도하고 기도하다.
If you wanted to create a sentence with
기도.
without having to preface it with prior context, you could talk about two things in one sentence. In order for this to be done,
기도하다.
is sometimes used twice in the same sentence. Let's look at how this can be created. If I wanted, I could simply say,
그녀가 예쁘고 똑똑해요.
which would translate to she is pretty and smart. The speaker could also stress that she is pretty and smart too by attaching
기도하다.
to both
예쁘다.
and.
똑똑하다.
The two clauses can be separated by.
고.
For example,
그녀가 예쁘기도 하고 똑똑하기도 해요.
she is pretty and smart too. As an English speaker, you would look at the Korean sentence and think that the extra
기도.
is unnecessary. In English, we would not say she is pretty too and smart too. However, in Korean, this is a common way to make these types of sentences. It might be good for you if we compare these types of sentences with a more simple sentence. I'd like to discuss the following two sentences.
제가 치약과 칫솔을 샀어요.
I bought toothpaste and a toothbrush.
제가 치약을 사기도 하고 칫솔을 사기도 했어요.
I bought toothpaste and a toothbrush too. The idea of both of those sentences is the same. In both examples, the end result is that the speaker bought toothpaste and a toothbrush. In most cases,
기도하고, 기도하다.
is used to emphasize that both actions or descriptions happened. Therefore, although both sentences above would be correct, I can't really imagine that the second example would be very common, only in cases where the speaker wanted to specifically emphasize that the action of buying toothpaste and buying a toothbrush occurred. For example, maybe if somebody asked, "Did you go to the store and only buy a toothbrush?" Here are some more examples.
양파를 썰기도 하고 물을 끓이기도 했어요.
I chopped onions and boiled water too.
끝없이 일을 하면 제가 불행하기도 하고 힘들기도 해요.
When I do work endlessly, I am unhappy and feel difficult.
아르키메데스는 철학을 가르치기도 하고 중요한 발명품을 발명하기도 했어요.
Archimedes taught philosophy and also invented important inventions too.
유럽 사람들이 쓰는 영어 억양의 개수를 세기도 하고 비교하기도 했어요.
I counted the number of English accents used by European people and compared them to.
두 식당의 음식을 비교했지만 맛의 차이가 미묘하기도 하고 가격이 비슷하기도 했어요.
I compared the two restaurants, but the difference in taste was subtle and the price is similar too. It's also possible to conjugate the first,
하다,
but not the word immediately before,
기,
to match the tense of the final.
하다.
For example,
양파를 썰기도 했고 물을 끓이기도 했어요.
I chopped onions and boiled water too.
유럽 사람들이 쓰는 영어 억양의 개수를 세기도 했고 비교하기도 했어요.
I counted the number of English accents used by European people and compared them to. I've discussed the conjugation of this first,
하다,
comparing it to a non-conjugated.
하다.
With many Korean people, I've never had a Korean person be able to distinguish these for me. Even when I've asked a Korean person to describe any difference in feeling between the two, I've always been told that they are identical, depending on the situation. Sentences with
기도하고, 기도하다.
can be used to indicate that sometimes one action is done, and sometimes another action is done. For example, if we look at the following sentence.
제가 피자를 먹을 때 콜라랑 먹기도 하고 물이랑 먹기도 해요.
When I eat pizza, sometimes I eat it with cola, and sometimes I eat it with water. In this sentence, the speaker is probably not saying that she eats pizza with both cola and water, but rather sometimes one option is done, and sometimes the other option is done. I always try to make distinctions between usages to make it easier for a learner to grasp. Originally, I tried distinguishing this usage with the usage I discussed previously, where
기도하고 기도하다.
stresses that both options occur. However, I feel that their usages cannot be distinguished, and the difference in meaning feeling can only be done through context. For example, if we look at this sentence that I showed you earlier,
양파를 썰기도 하고 물을 끓이기도 했어요.
I was discussing this sentence with my wife, and I incorrectly assumed that this sentence would only be able to mean that the speaker chopped onions and boiled water too. I incorrectly assumed that this sentence would never be able to mean sometimes I chop onions and sometimes I boil water. I thought to myself, when would anybody ever need to express this? My wife immediately came up with an example, saying maybe you were working at a restaurant, and somebody asks if you only poured drinks, at which point you could say no. I sometimes cut onions and sometimes boiled water. Therefore, I prefer to not separate these two meanings and consider them all a part of the same usage. As always in Korean, context can help you distinguish between subtle differences in meaning. You can see this same ambiguity in an English sentence as well. For example, if I said the following, when we used to meet, we used to watch movies and have dinner too. In this sentence, is the speaker indicating that he had dinner and watched a movie on the same date? Or is he indicating that sometimes he had dinner, and sometimes he watched a movie? This is similar to the ambiguity that we are creating in our Korean sentences. Context, however, can clear up any ambiguity. Here are some other examples that I have translated to have the sometimes I, and sometimes I, meaning.
저는 그 친구를 좋아하기도 하고 싫어하기도 해요.
I like that friend sometimes, and I hate him sometimes too.
저는 아침에 차를 마시기도 하고 커피를 마시기도 해요.
Sometimes I drink tea in the morning, and sometimes I drink coffee.
제가 나갈 때 가끔 향수를 뿌리기도 하고 가끔 안 뿌리기도 해요.
When I go out, sometimes I put on spray, perfume, Sometimes I don't.
남편을 많이 사랑하지만 가끔 밉기도 하고 귀찮기도 해요.
I love my husband a lot, but sometimes he pisses me off, and sometimes he is annoying.
저는 화요일에 테니스를 치기도 하고 배드민턴을 하기도 해요.
On Tuesdays, sometimes I play tennis, and sometimes I play badminton.
우리가 만났을 때 밥을 같이 먹기도 했고 영화를 보기도 했어요.
When we used to meet, sometimes we would eat together, and sometimes we would watch a movie together. That's it. For more info, please visit howtostudykorean.com.